Alright, welcome back to the Supercoach and Off channel. In this video we're going to look at the team lists for the rest of round 1 of the 2025 NRL Supercoach season. So a couple of minutes before 3 o'clock, so I thought just a quick wrap up of the 2 games so far. And I'll go to the matches. So the Raiders and the Warriors, I guess there's a few people very keen to rage trade. He'll start at the bottom with Metcalf with just the 12. Remember, Supercoach isn't run or won in the first week. It was one of those games where the Warriors just got no forward momentum. The Raiders definitely came out with a game plan to steamroll them through the middle and dominate, and they absolutely did. So you'd imagine, particularly back over in New Zealand, the Warriors will be a different prospect. So I expect Metcalf to bounce back. Obviously, if you don't expect that, fair enough, you could trade, but I would highly recommend holding. Copy and paste for someone like Rabbitohs, who I've got, just didn't get the ball. It's hard to get attacking stats when you don't get any ball. And scrolling through, the likes of Mitch Barnett, 55 is pretty solid. It was about a point a minute PPM, so happy to have him in the team. RTS with a bit of junk late on, you love to see that, 73. And on the flip side for the Raiders, obviously if you had Xavier Savage as a pod, you're cheering with a 114. But this is the classic example of, getting on a pick because they've scored a big score and you think, oh, they're going to make some cash. All right, the thing is, you don't bank those points. They're already come and gone. He's not going to score 114 Supercoach points every week. If he does, well, more power to him. I'll get him in at some point in the future. But I'm not reacting to just one-off success. And saying that, Corey Horsburgh with 61 was very impressive if you're looking to bring him in. You didn't already. Just be interesting to see whether he has that license to offload when he's back outside. So obviously Las Vegas is a fully enclosed stadium, so it's a super dry track, which does allow for offloads and those sort of riskier handlings. Zach Hosking was quite good too. Definitely one I'm interested in looking at as another mid-price second rower. And Owen Paddy scoring okay off the bench, but a few more minutes would be nice to have him in consideration. So I guess that's the good thing about this is we can, if we do want to get a Horsburgh or a Hosking in, we can adjust our team movements this week to make sure we've got enough cash and whatnot to make that happen. On the other game, just quickly, Panthers Sharks. So Isaiah Yeo, 90 points. Fantastic if you've got him to kick off the season. Won't score a try every week, but you take that out, he's still scoring about 60 points, which is fantastic. Dane Laurie, probably wouldn't have picked him to score 2 tries off the bench. Cleary was quite solid with 68. Not enough for me to loop him, but he looks like the one to go in the halfback options. And then probably just Casey McLean. So if you brought him in, you may lose a bit of cash in the short term, but I think the long term he is still a good option, a value option. He should play next week, given that they've got the 2-week turnaround essentially. But I guess for us non-owners, could be a little opportunity. He could dip below 400k, and we might be able to scoop him up and get even more value out of him. For the Sharks, probably Nico Hines with 50 isn't the worst, but probably without the goal kicking limits his upside a bit. So I think Cleary is the start. In saying that, if you have Hines, I don't know if he's worth a sideways trade to Cleary, unless you are dead set on getting rid of a Metcalf or something like that. But Trindle's interesting with the dual position. McInnes solid as ever. Fanua Blake got a try as well, so you can score a try, we know. But outside of that as well, lots of work, 25 tackles, you got the tackle bust. How many offloads? So just one ineffective offload, so I thought maybe there'd be a bit more there. But you take off the try and the line break, it is back down around 60, so in line with probably what his average would be normally. All right, but it is 3 o'clock, so we'll have a look at the teams. The team list round one. So Jazz Tavanga, Jai Arrow getting a view. I think that's Nwanga Tuasi, Jerome Hughes. So some clues there. So the first game, Roosters Broncos. So Roosters pretty much as predicted. Nwanga Tuasi and Toya in the centres, Sandon Smith and Townsend in the halves. In the forward pack, probably the big surprise, well, not surprise, but what we were expecting was Siwa Wong at 13. They've gone with Nat Butcher and Siwa Wong coming off the bench. Blake Steep also coming off the bench, another cheap second row option, but probably more of an edge player. So maybe he comes on and spells Radley. Um, but we've got Fiketti and Wong as well in that middle rotation. So could be interesting to see how that plays out. For the Broncos, pretty much as expected, the starting 13 as well. So Shibasaki should be a cheap option. That'll be included in the game if he's not already. Mariner taking Tony Staggs' spot there in the centres. Corey Pake's named to start. Gavjeski named in the second row. Hetherington on the at lock. But probably the name we were hoping to not see on the bench, Brendan Piacora. So I think Gavjeski, the little bit of value that he had has quickly dissipated. So probably would be an avoid. Tigers and Knights. So interestingly, Heath Mason named to start at fullback. So no Jareem Buller. Not in the extended bench either. So must be still suffering with an injury. Taruva and Skelton on the wings. Fatape in the centres alongside Dewey. So no Stafford Toa, which is interesting. Galvin Luai. The forward pack looks like the same one they named in the trial. So Jack Bird's coming off the bench. Tristan Hope, he might be the sort of bench option to replace De Silva at hooker, I'd imagine. Fino named in the 18 this week. And for the Knights, the backline looks as predicted. Fletcher Sharp at 5'8". Ponga at fullback obviously is a great option. Crossland named at 9. Lucas, Pierce Ball, Frizzell back row. Yeah, pretty much as expected. No real surprises there for the Knights. So Dolphins, Rabbitohs, if it's on, obviously the Cyclone is a bit of an issue. Surely, I understand it's the late game on Friday, but maybe you could just shift the Tigers Knights game back a little bit if you want that prime time audience on Friday, and probably play this one Sunday Arvo or something once the majority of the carnage is cleared. But again, I don't get paid to make these sort of decisions. So looking at the Dolphins, Junior Tupou named on the wing with Bostock out. I think he may have been on the wing anyway, and Averillo possibly pushing into the 5'8" position. But Bostock has sort of prevented that move. Forward pack, as expected, Marshall King back in the 9. Finny Furiaki and Plath on the edges. Tom Gilbert, the new captain, at lock. So I think that also represents his status in my Supercoach team as a lock. Whether I can fit him back in my fantasy team remains to be seen. For the Rabbitohs, Jai Gray named at fullback as expected with Latrell out. Campbell Graham named, so that's good news for Souths. Might be good news for Tyrone Munro as well if he's on the wing outside of him. Jamie Humphries named in the 7 to cover for Lewis Dodd this week. But Bud Sullivan is on the bench, so Mamazoulis is not locked into an 80-minute spot. But probably the big one, Lachlan Hubner named in the 13. They do have Havili and Duncan on the bench though, so there might be a late shift there. But if he is locked in at the start in the 13, I think he is our cheap second rower for our teams. Um, Dragons Bulldogs. So this is when the real season kicks off. Saturday Arvo, 4:30 p.m. Queensland time. Um, so for the Dragons, Tuipulotu named on the edge. So we were hoping for uh, Finau, or is that how you say it? I don't know. He's not even on the extended bench. So no Finau. So looking for another cheap option if you've gone him. The halves, Flanagan and Ilias. That's about all they've got at the club. Um, the forward pack is as expected. Toby Couchman getting the start. Um, Jacob Little on the bench. Hamish Stewart is the name that I'm not familiar with. I might have to have a bit more of a look at him, but I'm assuming he's potentially an edge forward, given they've got Couchman and Fatala Mariner on the bench. And for the Bulldogs, yeah, pretty much as expected. Um, Blake Wilson on the wing alongside Montoya, Birdo and Sexy in the halves. Uh, Sam Hughes starting alongside Max King. And the bench, so they've gone with Haywood, Tupanua, Hayes, and Salmon. So Tupanua, you'd assume, would play as a middle forward in this rotation. Um, Salmon's probably more the utility. Harry Hayes will play through the middle, despite being named at, I think he's named in the centres for fantasy, and wing fullback in Dream Team. Pretty funny stuff. Um, so interestingly, Pasifiki Tonga, very popular cheapie, named on the extended bench, so might not be too far off a start. Sea Eagles Cowboys. So the Sea Eagles, I don't think there's any surprises in that back line. Forward pack Jazz Tavanga named to start at 9. Um, yeah, it looks pretty well what we expected, so I think that's okay. For the Cowboys, good to see Purdue named in the centres. Nice cheapie option there. Duffy named in the 7, which is fantastic. Although Clifford is in the extended reserve, so not exactly out of it just yet. In the forward pack, Bateman plays on an edge, should get some good minutes. The bench, Lawton will be the sort of backup dummy half. And then Edwards, Neem, Hess probably rolling through the middle, you'd imagine. And then the last game, Storm and Eels. So for the Storm, Ryan Pappenhausen named to start, which is good considering he was under a bit of an injury cloud. Jack Howarth in the centres could be somewhat popular. Forward pack, I think as expected. Vailepu on the bench was one that I was looking at if you were looking for a cheap front rower. But I'm probably not looking for a cheap front rower anymore. And then the Eels. So probably the big name missing there in the back line is no Mitchell Moses. So not sure if he's injured or what's going on. So Moses has a foot injury. All right, cool. Um, so Jack Tungo named on the wing. Is he filling in for someone? I feel like he might be. Doesn't really say. But I feel like there is someone missing that I can't think of right now that should be on the wing. But could be a good get for fantasy where the prices start going up straight away. So in the forward pack, Jack Williams named on the edge. So I guess the hopes of Kautoga getting that spot are gone. I think he's got a bit of an injury too, to be fair. But it's Williams' spot to lose. And Riley Smith, the youngster named on the bench. So I guess our second bottom dollar cheapie to start the season at hooker. But I think Hands will take the majority of minutes. It probably won't be a 50-50 split. Charlie Geimer, another popular cheapie on the bench. Particularly with like a Matt Dury, he's probably more of an edge. So you imagine Geimer could play through the middle and potentially get some decent minutes. Cool. So that's all the teams. Yeah, excellent. So we'll wrap the video up there. Probably the big talking points. Just try and remember what they were. I don't know. we'll come back and we'll do the updated teams for Supercoach, NRL Fantasy, and NRL Dream Team later tonight. I do have to head off shortly, so I'll have a bit of a think about it during that time, and record those, get them out so that everyone can copy along or anti-pod everyone I've got, however you approach my picks. But that's it. So if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts straight away, feel free to add them below this video. Give us a like if you're keen for the rest of round one of NRL. Join all the legends that have subscribed to the channel. I think there's been like 30 subscribers this week, which for the size of this channel is pretty insane. But yeah, other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.